Evan Blake lived in a quiet little fishing village by the sea. His family had always been fishermen, and Evan knew every wave, every rock, and every whisper of the wind. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch enough fish to support himself. His boat was old, his nets were torn, and the ocean seemed to turn against him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Evan set out on the sea once more. The sky was a fiery orange and the waves were calm, but Evan felt uneasy. His heart told him that something strange was coming. As the night grew darker, the wind picked up and the waves began to roar. A storm rolled in faster than Evan could steer his boat back to shore. His boat rocked violently, and before he knew it, a massive wave crashed into him, throwing him overboard. The icy water swallowed him, and he sank deeper and deeper. Just as Evan thought it was the end, a soft voice called out to him. "I can save you," it whispered. Evan opened his eyes underwater and saw her, a mermaid. She had shimmering silver scales, long flowing hair, and eyes that glowed like the moon. Her tail moved gracefully as she swam toward him. "I will save your life," she said, her voice like music in the water. "But there is a price." Desperate to live, Evan nodded. "I'll do anything," he gasped. The mermaid smiled gently. "I promise you wealth beyond your wildest dreams. You will never go hungry again. But remember," she added, her voice becoming more serious, "the ocean always collects its debts. You must fulfill your part of the bargain when the time comes." Before Evan could ask what she meant, the mermaid wrapped her arms around him and pulled him to the surface. The storm had vanished, and his boat floated safely nearby, as if nothing had happened. Evan climbed back aboard, gasping for air. The mermaid was gone, but her words echoed in his mind. The ocean always collects its debts. Days passed, and something incredible happened. Evan's luck changed overnight. His nets were always full, bursting with the largest, healthiest fish. Other fishermen in the village struggled, but Evan always returned with a bounty. Then, something even more astonishing occurred. One morning, as Evan walked along the shore, he spotted a glittering object half buried in the sand. It was a golden coin. As he dug around, he found more: coins, jewels, and even small trinkets of gold and silver. Treasure, as if the sea itself was rewarding him. Word of Evan's sudden fortune spread quickly throughout the village. People were amazed by how he went from struggling to becoming the wealthiest man around. Evan built a grand house on the cliffs overlooking the sea, with tall windows that faced the ocean and glittering gold coins decorating his shelves. His old, tattered boat was replaced with a fine, sturdy one, and he hired other fishermen to work for him. But as his wealth grew, so did the strange happenings. Late at night, when the waves crashed against the cliffs, Evan would hear a soft voice calling his name. Sometimes he would catch a glimpse of a shimmering tail slipping beneath the surface of the water. It was the mermaid. Though she never appeared fully, he knew she was there, watching him, waiting. Evan tried to ignore the whispers and the strange pull he felt toward the ocean. After all, he had everything he ever wanted now. He was respected, admired, and never went hungry. But deep inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a promise, and soon he would have to keep it. Evan's life grew more complicated when he met Eliza, a beautiful young woman from a wealthy family who had just moved to the village. With her kind eyes and warm smile, Eliza quickly captured Evan's heart, and before long, they were engaged to be married. Evan felt like his life was perfect. He had the love of Eliza, a vast fortune, and the admiration of the village. But as his wedding day approached, the sea grew restless. Storms rolled in more frequently, and the ocean seemed to crash against the cliffs harder than ever before. The whispers at night became louder, and the voice of the mermaid echoed in his mind. One night, as he stood on the shore, staring out at the dark waves, the mermaid finally appeared again. Her silver tail shimmered in the moonlight, and her blue eyes locked onto his. "You have forgotten our promise, Evan," she said softly. Her voice was no longer gentle but filled with sadness. "The time has come for you to fulfill your end of the bargain." Evan's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" he asked, stepping back from the water. "I've done everything right. You promised me wealth, and I've kept your secret." The mermaid shook her head. "I did promise you wealth, but in exchange, you promised your heart to the ocean. You belong to the sea now, Evan. You can't have both worlds." Evan's chest tightened with fear. He had thought the promise was about his fortune, but now he realized the mermaid had meant something much deeper. If he didn't fulfill his promise, everything he had gained could be lost. Evan didn't sleep that night. He stared out his window at the churning sea, Marina's words echoing in his mind. The next day, he tried to put it out of his head, focusing on his upcoming wedding. But as the ceremony neared, the storms grew worse, and the whispers grew louder. On the day of his wedding, the sun barely peeked through the thick clouds. The village gathered for the celebration, but Evan felt uneasy. As he stood beside Eliza, about to exchange vows, the ground shook, and a fierce wind blew in from the sea. Suddenly, the ocean roared louder than ever before, and Evan knew what was happening. The sea was calling for him. Marina had come to collect. Evan ran down to the shore, leaving the confused wedding guests behind. As he reached the water's edge, the waves crashed against him, and there, rising from the sea, was Marina. Her eyes were filled with both sadness and determination. "You must choose," she said, "your life on land, with your wealth and Eliza, or the life you promised me beneath the sea. The fortune I gave you was a gift, but it comes with a price." Evan's heart pounded. He looked back toward the village, where Eliza stood on the cliff, watching him with fear and confusion in her eyes. He loved her deeply, but he knew that if he didn't honor his promise to the mermaid, everything he had built could crumble. "Is there no other way?" he begged. Marina's face softened for a moment. "There is only one way to end this," she said. "You must give up everything. The fortune, the treasures, and the life of ease. Throw it all back into the sea, and your debt will be forgiven." Evan hesitated. The fortune had brought him everything he thought he wanted: comfort, respect, and love. But now he realized that none of it was truly his. The ocean had given it to him, and the ocean could just as easily take it away. With trembling hands, Evan made his choice. Evan returned to his house and gathered all the gold, jewels, and treasures the sea had given him. He carried them down to the shore, where the waves lapped hungrily at his feet. One by one, he threw them back into the water. The golden coins, the silver goblets, the shining jewels, they all sank into the sea, disappearing beneath the waves. As he let go of the last piece of treasure, the wind suddenly died down and the ocean grew calm. Marina floated silently in the water, her eyes watching him closely. "You have honored your promise," she said softly. "The sea will no longer claim you." Evan felt a heavy weight lift from his shoulders, but his heart ached as he realized what he had given up. He turned to look back at the cliffs, where Eliza waited for him. Before he could speak, Marina reached out and gently touched his cheek. "You chose wisely," she said, her voice sad but kind. "Go live the life you've earned with Eliza. The ocean will never trouble you again." With that, the mermaid slipped beneath the waves, disappearing into the deep, leaving Evan alone on the shore. Evan returned to Eliza, and though they had lost the fortune, they still had each other. He explained everything to her, and though it was hard for her to believe at first, she saw the love and sacrifice in his eyes. Together, they rebuilt their life, not with treasure or wealth, but with hard work and love. Evan's fortune might have disappeared with the sea, but his heart had stayed with Eliza. From that day forward, Evan never looked at the ocean the same way again. He respected it, honored it, and remembered the promise he had made. And though the sea no longer called to him, sometimes, on a quiet night, when the moonlight shimmered on the waves, he thought he could still hear Marina's voice, whispering softly just beneath the surface.